There is a compliment that is given to certain children, often by teachers, relatives, or strangers in grocery stores. It is meant to be praise, but for the recipient, it often feels like a heavy coat placed upon shoulders that are too narrow to carry it. The phrase is, "You are so mature for your age," or perhaps, "You are an old soul." We say this to children who are quiet, children who are well behaved, children who seem to understand the nuances of adult emotion better than they understand the rules of tag. We treat this maturity as a gift, a sign of intelligence. But we rarely ask why a 7-year-old knows how to de-escalate an argument. We rarely ask why a 10-year-old is making dinner for their siblings. We rarely ask why a child would choose to sit and listen to adults talk rather than run in the grass. If we looked closer, beneath the veneer of the good child, we would not see maturity. We would see survival. We would see a child who has learned that their childhood is a luxury their family cannot afford. This is the story of the lost childhood. It isn't about a childhood that was forgotten. It is about a childhood that was skipped. It is about the boy or girl who was drafted into the war of adulthood before they had even learned to tie their shoes. And now, 20 or 30 years later, that child is an adult. And they are tired. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that these adults carry. It is not physical fatigue. It is a soul-deep weariness. It is the exhaustion of someone who has been working a full-time job since they were 5 years old. They often wake up with a feeling of dread, a sense that if they do not manage everything perfectly, the schedule, the emotions of their partner, the safety of the house, it will all fall apart. They move through the world with a clipboard in their mind. They are the managers of the universe, but deep down, in the quiet moments, they feel cheated. They look at other adults who know how to play, how to be silly, how to be irresponsible, and they feel a mix of judgment and envy. They ask themselves, why is it so hard for me to let go? Why do I feel guilty when I sit down? The answer lies in the past, in the architecture of a home where the roles were reversed. Psychologists call this parentification. It is a heavy word for a tragic dynamic. It happens when the parents, due to their own trauma, addiction, immaturity, or absence, abdicate their throne. They step down from the role of the caretaker, and the vacancy is filled by the child. This happens in two ways. First, there is instrumental parentification. This is the physical labour. The child who pays the bills, translates for the parents, raises the younger siblings, or cooks the meals. They become the deputy parent. They learn that their value is attached to their utility. They believe, I am loved because I am useful. But the second kind is more insidious. It is emotional parentification. This is the child who becomes the therapist, the mediator, the best friend. The mother comes to the daughter to complain about the father. The father vents to the son about his depression. The child becomes the emotional dumping ground for the adults. Imagine the weight of that. A child's mind is a small cup designed to hold simple things: play, curiosity, affection. But the parent pours in a gallon of complex adult misery. The cup does not just overflow, it cracks. The child learns a dangerous lesson here. They learn that their own needs are invisible. They learn that to have needs is to be a burden. They look at their parents, these fragile, volatile giants, and they realise, I have to be the strong one. If I cry, they will crumble. If I am scared, there is no one to comfort me, so I must simply not be scared. They amputate their own vulnerability. They act as the emotional stabiliser for the entire house. They walk on eggshells, scanning the room for micro-expressions. Is Dad angry? Is Mum sad? Is the air pressure changing? They become experts in reading the room. They develop a superpower, hyper-empathy. But this empathy isn't a gift. It's a radar system for incoming threats. The old soul is often just a hyper-vigilant child. They aren't wise. They are watching. So the child grows up. They leave the house. They get the job. They escape the dynamic. But they take the mechanism with them. The primary symptom of the lost childhood in adulthood is hyper-independence. For the person who had to raise themselves, asking for help feels like dying, literally. To ask for help implies that you cannot handle it, and in their childhood logic, if they couldn't handle it, the family would collapse. So, as adults, they do everything themselves. They refuse to delegate. They struggle to collaborate. If a partner offers to do the dishes, they hover, watching, correcting, eventually taking over, because it is just easier if they do it. They are the ones who say, "I'm fine," while their world is burning down. They are the ones who carry the couch up the stairs alone rather than call a friend. They frame this as strength. They say, "I don't need anyone." But this isn't strength. It is a trauma response. It is the inability to trust that anyone else is capable or that anyone else cares. They believe that if they let go of the wheel for even a second, the car will crash. Because for 18 years, that was true, and this creates a profound loneliness, because you cannot connect with people if you do not need them. Intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires showing your soft underbelly. It requires saying, "I cannot carry this alone." But the adult with the lost childhood views need as a weakness. They view dependency as a trap. So they are surrounded by people, yet untouchable. They are the rock for everyone else, the reliable one, the strong one. But who holds the rock? Who takes care of the caretaker? Usually the answer is no one. And beneath this hyper-independence, a quiet resentment begins to boil. They start to resent the people they help. They resent the perceived laziness of others. They think, "Why do I have to do everything?" But they never give anyone the chance to help. They create the very isolation they hate. There comes a moment, usually in the 30s or 40s, where the bill comes due. The adrenaline of survival wears off. The career is established. The safety they craved has been achieved. And suddenly, there is room to feel. And what rushes in is not relief. It is grief. It is a specific mourning grief for the little boy or little girl who never got to play. You might find yourself walking through a toy aisle and feeling a lump in your throat. You might see a teenager acting reckless and stupid and feel a sudden flash of rage. Not at them, but at the fact that you never got to be reckless. You never got to be stupid. You had to be perfect. This is the grief of the unlived life. It is the realization that you were robbed of the trial and error period of development. You went straight from infancy to management. This is why we see the phenomenon of the midlife crisis. It is often just a delayed adolescence. It is the inner child finally kicking down the door and screaming, "It is my turn." We need to validate this anger. Society tells us to honour our parents, to be grateful. People say they did the best they could, and logically, perhaps that is true. Perhaps your parents were victims of their own lost childhoods. Trauma is often a baton passed down in a relay race that no one signed up for. But emotionally, it is okay to be angry. It is okay to be angry that you had to be the parent. It is okay to be furious that you were unprotected. You cannot heal a wound by pretending it isn't there. You have to look at the blood. You have to acknowledge the theft. Something was stolen from you. A lightness, a freedom, a sense of safety, and you cannot get it back. That time is gone. That is the tragedy. There is no time machine. You cannot go back and be 7 years old and carefree. You have to grieve that loss the same way you grieve a death. Because it is a death. It is the death of the person you might have been if you hadn't been forced to be a soldier. So, what do we do with this grief? How do we put down the heavy coat? The healing of the lost childhood is not about growing up. You are already grown up. You have been grown up since you were 6. The healing comes from learning how to be young. It comes from reparenting yourself. This sounds abstract, but it is a practical, daily discipline. It begins with the practice of play. For the hyper-independent adult, play feels like a waste of time. It feels unproductive. It feels guilty. If they sit to watch a movie, they are folding laundry. If they go for a walk, they are listening to an educational podcast. They must always be optimizing. The rebellion is to do something pointlessly unproductive, to paint a picture that is ugly and throw it away, to dance in the kitchen when no one is watching, to buy the Lego set, to lie on the grass and do absolutely nothing. This is terrifying for the survivor of a lost childhood. Silence feels like danger. Unproductivity feels like failure. But you must retrain your nervous system. You must teach your body, I am safe. The house will not fall down if I rest. I am allowed to just exist. It also involves asking for help. This is the hardest exercise, to let someone else carry a box, to let someone else plan the date, to admit, I am overwhelmed. When you do this, you are breaking the contract you signed as a child. You are rewriting the rule that says, I must be useful to be loved. You will find that the people who truly love you do not love you for your utility. They love you for your essence. They want to help you. Letting them help you is an act of love. It lets them into your fortress, and finally, it involves talking to that inner child. Not as a metaphor, but as a reality. Close your eyes and visualize yourself at the age where the burden became too heavy. See that child. They are probably waiting for instructions. They are probably holding a clipboard. Imagine taking the clipboard out of their hands. Imagine telling them, you are fired. The job is done. I have this now. I am the adult. I have the money. I have the strength. I have the safety. You can go play. There is a Japanese art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquer. The break is not hidden. It is highlighted. The object becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. The adult who survives a lost childhood has a unique kind of beauty. You have a depth that others do not. You have a resilience that is forged in fire. You have an empathy that can change the world. But you do not need to learn and live in the fire anymore. You have survived. You are out of the burning house. You can put down the buckets of water. Imagine a playground at dusk. The streetlights are just coming on. For years, you have stood outside the fence, watching the other children play, guarding the gate, making sure everyone else was safe. You are an adult now. You are tall. You are strong. But the gate is open. It is not too late to go inside. It is not too late to swing. It is not too late to slide. It is not too late to learn that you are worthy of love, not for what you do, but for who you are. The sun does not ask the flower to fix the garden. The sun simply shines on it. You are the flower. You have been the gardener for too long. Lay down the tools. Look up at the sky. And for the first time in your life, just let yourself grow.